The second I killed the engine and stared at that 8-foot steel monster wrapping my entire property like a goddamn zoo exhibit, with a shiny new padlock dangling from the only gate like it was laughing in my face, I knew Karen Langley had finally snapped. Welcome to Harmony Pines Estates. The little plastic sign read, "Private community access only." She didn't just want my classic trucks moved or my chickens gone. She wanted me erased. And she'd found a cute little loophole to do it while still waving that fake "we're all family" smile. I'd lived on this half-acre corner lot for 16 years before Harmony Pines was even a wet dream on some developer's napkin. Bought it cash after my wife Sarah passed, figuring the quiet foothills outside Denver would let an old firefighter finally sleep through the night. I had my workshop out back. Nothing fancy, just where I restored old muscle cars for buddies and kept a little vegetable garden that actually grew tomatoes you could taste. A couple dozen chickens for fresh eggs. An American flag that had flown on my porch through blizzards and barbecues alike. It wasn't perfect. It was mine. Peaceful. Until the beige invasion started and Karen crowned herself HOA Queen. First it was just letters. Dear Mr. Riley, your property fails to meet community aesthetic standards. Please remove visible clutter within 30 days. Clutter. That's what they called my half-finished 67 Camaro sitting in the driveway like it had personally offended their property values. Then came the visits. Karen would glide up in her pastel polo, clipboard in one manicured hand, 2 board drones trailing behind like obedient ducklings. "Nathan, honey," she'd coo in that sticky sweet voice. "We're building harmony here. Your little hobby is dragging down everyone's home values." I'd lean on my porch rail, arms crossed, and answer the same every time. "Karen, my deed predates your HOA charter by 14 years. You've got zero jurisdiction." She'd smile tighter, eyes like ice picks. "The board feels differently. And several neighbors have expressed concerns." Concerns. That's HOA speak for the whispers she'd been spreading in the group chat. "Poor Nate's been acting unstable since he lost his wife. Those trucks are probably a cry for help." I heard it all secondhand from the one decent neighbor who still talked to me. I could have fought it then. Could have gone to meetings, raised hell. Instead I smiled back, fixed my fence, kept my flag flying, and let them think they'd worn me down. Big mistake on their part. 2 days. That's all it took. My sister called. Mom had taken a bad fall after hip surgery. I locked the house, left the chickens with the feed store kid, and drove to Boulder. 48 hours later I rolled back up the county road at sunset, tired, sore, just wanting my own porch and a cold beer. What I got was a prison yard. The fence ran perfectly along my property line, except at the driveway. There, on a stupid little 5x5 triangle they must have quietly bought from the old farmer who used to own the corner, they'd planted the only gate. My gate. Now padlocked with their shiny new lock and their smug little sign. I sat in my truck for a full minute, engine ticking, blood roaring in my ears. Then I climbed out, rattled the gate like it owed me money. Solid. I walked the whole perimeter. Yep, they'd used their own land to box me in while technically never touching mine. A loophole wrapped in community standards. Cute. Real cute. Most guys would have started yelling, called the cops, maybe swung a sledgehammer. I didn't. I just stood there, let the rage cool into something sharp and patient. 30 years running into burning buildings teaches you one thing. Screaming never opens doors. Thinking does. I pulled out my phone and called the only guy who owed me bigger than anyone. Tommy Ruiz, ex-county assessor who'd lost his barn to a lightning strike I helped save. "Tommy, remember that favor? I need every scrap of paper on a 5x5 triangle at the corner of Harmony Pines and County Road 7. Who sold it? When? And what's behind it?" He whistled low. "They finally did it, huh? Give me 24 hours. He called back in 18. "You're not gonna believe this, Nate." The old farmer, Silas Crow, kept a 10-foot wide strip running right behind that triangle straight to the county road. Never sold it. Told the developers he might if they played nice. Guess they didn't. My pulse kicked up for the first time since I saw the fence. Is it for sale? Not listed. But Silas hates these HOA clowns more than you do. Name your price. 3 days and most of my savings later, the deed was in my name. 10 feet wide, 40 yards long, and sitting right behind their pretty new gate. And guess what the developers had left behind on that forgotten strip? A rusty maintenance shed they never bothered tearing down. Inside, hanging on a nail like it had been waiting for me, the original gate key. They just slapped their padlock over the existing mechanism. Sloppy. I didn't tell a soul. I waited for the perfect moment. It came that Saturday, Harmony Pine's big family unity picnic, on the manicured lawn by their clubhouse. Perfect weather, perfect people, perfect little Karen Langley in her matching pastel visor, handing out gluten-free cookies like she was running for mayor. I drove my old Dodge straight up the county road, turned onto my new strip, and parked 6 inches from their shiny locked gate. I stepped out calm as Sunday morning, pulled a big red private property, no trespassing sign from the truck bed, along with a post driver and hammer. The first strike rang out like a gunshot. Heads turned. Karen's head snapped around so fast I thought she'd give herself whiplash. She came storming across the grass, face redder than my Camaro, clipboard flapping like a battle flag. Nathan Riley, what in heaven's name do you think you're doing? I stopped hammering, leaned on the driver, and gave her my best slow smile, the one that doesn't reach the eyes. Just posting a sign, Karen. On my land. Her laugh came out like a hiccup. Your land? This is HOA approach property. You can't. I pulled the freshly recorded deed from my jacket and unfolded it nice and slow. Funny thing about deeds, Karen. This one says the 10-foot strip we're standing on right now belongs to me. Bought and paid for 3 days ago. I held it out so the whole picnic crowd could see. Her eyes bulged. Before she could sputter, I reached into my other pocket and held up the rusty key. And this? Found it in that cute little shed on my land. Watch this. I walked past her frozen face, slid the key into the original mechanism under their shiny padlock, and turned. Click. The gate swung open smooth as butter. I stepped through, pulled it shut behind me, and gave the crowd a little wave. Y'all enjoy your picnic. I'm just gonna go home now. The silence behind me was beautiful. Karen stood there with her mouth opening and closing like a landed trout, pastel polo suddenly looking 2 sizes too small. Round one to the guy they thought was broken. But I knew they wouldn't stop. They never do. The next morning I was on my porch with coffee when the convoy arrived. 3 SUVs and 2 golf carts kicking up dust like they owned the county. They didn't even pretend to stop at the gate. They drove straight onto my grass and parked 6 feet from my steps. Karen climbed out first, flanked by 2 board members and a woman in a power suit carrying a briefcase like it was a weapon. Eleanor Vance, HOA counsel and surprise Karen's cousin. Karen didn't bother with pleasantries this time. She just thrust a folder at me. You are hereby served, Mr. Riley. You are in violation of established zoning and currently trespassing on community property. I took a slow sip of coffee. Trespassing on my own yard? That's a new one. Eleanor stepped forward, all business. As you can see on this map, your entire property is now contained within the Harmony Pines secured perimeter. Pending county approval, we have reclassified it as internal green space. Once approved, you'll be required to follow all HOA guidelines on maintenance and approved activities. She smiled like she just handed me a death sentence wrapped in a bow. It's for the good of the community, Nathan. Harmony. I stared at her. Then at Karen. Then at the ridiculous fence they built around my life. Something inside me clicked into place colder than any fire I'd ever walked through. Harmony, I repeated, tasting the word like spoiled milk. That's cute. I turned, walked back inside, and picked up my phone. My cousin Dan, sharpest land use attorney in Colorado, was on speed dial. I put him on speaker and walked back out, holding the phone toward Karen like a microphone. You've reached Daniel Riley, attorney at law. His voice cut through crisp as winter air. Whoever I'm speaking to has exactly 3 seconds to remove yourselves from my client's private property before I file for criminal trespass, harassment, conspiracy, and unlawful enclosure under Colorado Revised Statutes Title 38. Start walking. Karen went white. Eleanor snatched the phone, tried to lawyer speak, but Dan just started dropping case law like grenades. When he mentioned personal liability and immediate injunctive relief against board members by name, Eleanor's mouth snapped shut. They scrambled back into their little convoy and peeled out so fast the golf carts almost tipped. I watched them go, took another sip of coffee, and smiled for the first time in weeks. They thought they'd backed me into a corner. They had no idea I was about to turn that corner into their worst nightmare. That little victory felt good, but I knew the real fight was just starting. Sheriff Brody swung by the diner the next afternoon, slid into my booth with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Heard you gave the HOA a heart attack, Nate. They were down at the station this morning filing complaints. Claimed you threatened to start some kind of sovereign workshop state." He chuckled, then got serious. "They're playing dirty, son. County Commissioner's office already got calls about response time concerns out your way. Watch your back, and watch who helps you." He wasn't kidding. That night around 2 a.m., my dog Max started growling toward the north fence. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. 3 shadows were digging a trench right along the edge of my new strip, wide enough for another access road. I hit them with the beam. "Evening, boys." They scattered like roaches, one dropping a walkie-talkie that crackled. "Keep digging. We need secondary access by sunrise." Next morning I launched my drone, caught the half-finished trench on video, then swept over their side of the fence. There, right behind the clubhouse, was a folding table covered in blueprints for a brand new private road that would cut straight across my strip. I zoomed in. Then a spotlight blinded the camera. A second later, bang. A rifle shot dropped my drone like a stone. I retrieved the wreckage after dark. Footage was already in the cloud. I sent it to Dan and Sheriff Brody. Thought maybe shooting down a civilian drone would make them pause. No. The very next afternoon I came back from town to find my county road approach blocked by dump trucks and an asphalt paver. They were laying fresh blacktop complete with yellow lines and a shiny new sign. "Coming soon, Harmony Pines North Entrance. Private HOA road. Permitted traffic only." Karen stood off to the side with her clipboard, looking like she just won the lottery. The gall was almost impressive. I called Barry Davies, county zoning inspector I'd pulled from a barn fire years ago. He showed up chewing sunflower seeds, took one look, and started laughing so hard he nearly choked. "They're paving without permits on county easement in your private land? Oh, they are in deep." He flashed his badge at the security goons who tried to run him off. "Son, I am the county. Start packing this circus before I write citations that'll make your HOA dues look like pocket change." The crew shut down fast. But Karen's smile never slipped. She was already planning the next move. 2 days later, the certified letter arrived from a bank I'd never borrowed from. Notice of pending foreclosure. Delinquent HOA assessments totaling $18,742. I own my place free and clear. The attached list was pure poetry. Excessive workshop shadow encroachment, unauthorized poultry units, atmospheric light pollution from American flag lights, failure to maintain approved landscaping. Dan got an emergency cease and desist the same afternoon. They weren't done. 2 nights before our court date, the power died. Not a storm, just a clean professional cut at the utility pole. No lights, no well, no cameras. I sat in the dark with Max and my shotgun, generator humming outside, and realized they'd finally pushed me past angry. They'd pushed me to finished. That's when the phone rang. Eleanor Vance, Karen's own cousin and counsel, whispering like she was confessing murder. "I'm done, Nate. They forged the permit for the bulldozer. They cut your power. They planned the whole thing to force you out and flip your land for a premium lot. I have everything, emails, memos, bank transfers. I'll bring it tonight. Just don't let them win." She showed up at 1 a.m., handed me a flash drive with shaking hands, and disappeared into the night. Game over. Walking into Travis County Courthouse the next morning felt like stepping onto a stage I'd rehearsed for months. Judge Carol Ames didn't suffer fools. Dan laid it out piece by damning piece: photos of the illegal fence, video of the trespass, zoning violation reports, drone footage, the forged bulldozer permit, the power line cut, the ridiculous foreclosure notice. Then he dropped the flash drive. Your Honor, these internal emails show a calculated campaign of harassment, forgery, attempted arson and fraud, all signed off by President Karen Langley and the board. The courtroom went graveyard quiet. Karen's face turned the color of spoiled milk. When Dan casually added that I now own the rectangle of land directly under their main clubhouse parking lot, complete with the ridiculous fountain, she actually swayed. Judge Ames didn't even need closing arguments. She leaned forward, voice ice. In 15 years on the bench, I have never seen such a blatant, malicious conspiracy disguised as community standards. All HOA claims are dismissed with prejudice. Punitive damages to Mr. Riley in the amount of $500,000. And I am referring this entire board to the district attorney for felony charges. Deputies moved in before the gavel even finished banging. Karen was still screaming about appeals when the cuffs clicked. The board members who'd spent months smirking at me now looked like they'd swallowed their own clipboards. It was over. Mostly. 3 days later, the ground started shaking behind their backyards. 4 flatbeds rolled in carrying steel beams, an excavator, and a big red, white, and blue sign that caught the morning sun. Heritage Auto Restoration Yard Grand Opening Weekend Car Meets hosted by Nate Riley. The neighbors gathered like confused sheep in their bathrobes. One of Karen's former lieutenants, Peterson from the Beautification Committee, stomped across the line. You can't do this. This is a quiet residential neighborhood. I tipped my hat, kept my voice calm. Morning, Peterson. This is my private property. Properly zoned agricultural recreational. All permits signed by Inspector Davies himself. And yep, it's gonna get a little louder on weekends. Classic car meets. Maybe some veterans barbecues. Good clean fun. Sarah Jenkins from Channel 9 was live on scene when the first engine revved. The roar rolled across those perfect beige backyards like sweet, sweet music. The new HOA board sent a formal apology letter 3 months later. I read it once, smiled, and filed it next to the foreclosure notice. Sometimes I sit on my porch at sunset now, listening to the distant rumble of engines and laughter from the yard. Max at my feet, flags still flying. The peace feels different, hard-won, honest, loud in all the right ways. They tried to fence me in, bankrupt me, break me. They failed. So here's the question I leave you with, folks. Was I the villain for fighting back with every legal tool I had? Or was the real crime letting a Karen with a clipboard decide whose home counts as part of the community? You tell me. Drop your thoughts below, I read every single one. See you next time when another HOA horror story gets the ending it deserves. Stay free out there.